Right now on Upfront.
The governor's vetoes.
Here we go.
Governor Tony Evers signs the state budget, but with it, 51 partial vetoes and a message for Republicans.
That decision is an abdication of duty.
Now on Upfront, Republicans responding. New threats of lawsuits.
He lied to the people of Wisconsin in the campaign last year. He lied to us during the negotiating process.
Our guest this Sunday, Republican Assembly Speaker Robin Vos from Brussels. His response in his address and meetings with European leaders.
Then former Democratic Governor Jim Doyle.
No doubt this veto power is unusual. It's unusual anywhere in the country.
The long-standing history of the governor's powerful veto, from Frankenstein to Vanna White, the former governor with his new insight on the legal battle brewing today.
And Wisconsin tribes looking to cash in on cannabis. The new push to pursue retail marijuana, the policy meeting just days away, and the looming legal questions ahead.
This is Upfront with Jaron Jordan and political director Matt Smith.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. New fallout this weekend from the governor's budget vetoes, and we've got it all here.
Governor Tony Evers signing the GOP spending plan, but with 51 partial vetoes, a powerful authority given to Wisconsin's governor. The most controversial veto, the governor increasing public school funding for 402 years. The governor doing so by striking a dash and the number 20 to turn the 2024-2025 school year into the year 24-25.
Former Governor Jim Doyle is standing by, but first, all of this developing as Assembly Speaker Robin Vos is in Brussels, Belgium's capital, and the de facto home of the European Union. Vos is president of the National Conference of State Legislatures. They're addressing and meeting with local European leaders. Speaker Vos joins us now from Brussels. Speaker, like always, good to see you.
Thanks for having me on, Matt.
Speaker, you are just coming off an address to the General Assembly of the European Committee on the Regions, an organization representing local and regional government leaders within the European Union.
I challenge you at every opportunity to reflect on the importance of our democratic institutions in combating the forces that seek to revoke fundamental freedoms and separation of powers. We must all prioritize the well-being of our cherished institutions, even when it is not politically convenient to do so.
Curious, before these European leaders, what specifically were you talking about?
Well, I think, Matt, first of all, thanks for having me on. It's really important for us to remember that the things that bind Europe and the United States aren't just the hundreds of years of history and the fact that we've been allies for that entire time. It's also the fact that we're the world's leading democracies. So I think it's really important for us to always remember that democracy is fragile. We see in Europe, of course, the war in Ukraine being fought by Russia, two entities that are potentially going to spread across Europe if it's not done right. So that's part of the things that we talked about here in Europe, is the fact that the United States, as the world's greatest democracy, has to continue to support those countries that fight for the freedom and the things that we hold dear in our country ourselves.
Let's talk about the state budget. While you're overseas, the governor signing the budget with 51 partial vetoes. You don't see a path to override any of those vetoes with Democratic support needed in the Assembly at this point, do you?
I think it's unlikely, with Democrats in the Assembly being so lockstep with whatever Governor Evers tells them to do. He really is, in many ways, the only person in the Capitol who is thinking for himself. Everybody else just follows along with whatever he says. On the Republican side, we have a lot more divergence of opinion. And I think that's part of the challenge that we have always had, is we have to work really hard to come together and do what's right for Wisconsin.
An override would require two-thirds approval from two-thirds of the lawmakers present. Would you ever attempt to schedule votes when Democrats aren't there?
Well, we don't plan it that way. I mean, if Democrats don't show up, I can't stop that. But I guess the most important thing for us is what I think Governor Evers did borders on unconstitutional. We know that Governor Evers has tried this. Frankly, no other governor has tried to do what Governor Evers did this time. It's really record-breaking and something that's really disappointing as you look at the separation of powers. I hear Democrats complain because they don't like the fact that we got a massive school choice expansion or that we had a map that was passed, but both were signed by a governor, went through the traditional process, and found to be constitutional by the court. So now instead what we have is Governor Evers breaking his word, doing something that's kind of underhanded and doing it in a way that really could never pass the legislature. So it's almost like he believes his powers as governor should be supreme to those of the legislature or the Supreme Court. We're supposed to be co-equal branches, and the fact that Governor Evers did this, hopefully we'll have somebody, perhaps it's the legislature, perhaps it's a taxpayer group, who takes this to court, and like we've done in the past, win by making sure that the separation of powers remains and not the ability of one person, one dictator, to be able to say what's right and what's wrong.
Are you planning to sue over the education vetoes?
It's certainly a possibility. We have to work with our Senate colleagues. That that would not be our first choice. But again, we didn't choose this fight. We tried to negotiate in good faith. We kept our word. We fulfilled the promises that we made in order to get the deal across the finish line. Governor Evers is the one who clearly has broken his word by not keeping true to the faith and the spirit of what we negotiated. So the only remedy might be to go to court. That's one of the things we're exploring. But I want to talk about that with our caucus and also with our Senate colleagues before we make a formal announcement.
The governor's spokesperson told WisPolitics, our editorial partner, that he did not break his word on any of this agreement in terms of the shared revenue and the education funding. What specifically are you accusing him of breaking his word on?
Well, first of all, it's interesting that the spokesperson wasn't in the room, so she has no idea what we talked about other than what they told her. But what we talked about was the fact that we struck a deal to have $325 per year in each of the 2 years to be able to go forward with funding this budget. We did not say it was okay to have one person use a creative veto to have property tax increases guaranteed for the next 400 years. That was never part of our discussion. And certainly the idea that we're going to have massive property tax increases, something that the governor said he was against, again, just proves he's a liar. He lied to the people of Wisconsin in the campaign last year. He lied to us during the negotiating process, and it now really calls into question his ability to try to find bipartisan compromises like we've been working on this entire year. If you remember last fall, I said we were hitting the reset button, and we did. We had an opportunity to negotiate to help the city and county of Milwaukee. We had an ability to bring forward an idea to say, how do we fund our schools and still expand school choice? All of which were negotiated, where both sides knew what they were getting, and ultimately that became law. The way Governor Evers has gone about this is really underhanded, and it's something that's going to have serious repercussions over the course of time if he wants to try to get anything done.
It appears to be a bold accusation to call the sitting governor a liar.
Well, the truth is the truth. When you go ahead and make a promise, when you go ahead and negotiate a deal and then try to find an underhanded way to actually accomplish what you think is in your political best interests, that's wrong. We have never been deceitful. There are sometimes we do things that Democrats don't like, but they go through the democratic process. They are held in a committee hearing. We have the opportunity for public testimony. We bring it to the public. We take a vote. Everybody's on the record. It's not done over a holiday weekend behind closed doors, huddling only with his staff, trying to figure a way to maximize the tax increases on the middle class of Wisconsin and to minimize the ability for the other branches to have their say. That clearly to me shows he is outside the democratic norms and something has to be done about it.
Let me back this up for 1 second for our viewers. The governor used his broad veto authority to increase funding for public schools for 400 some years. He struck a hyphen and several numbers in the budget, which he has the ability to do. Well,
we don't know that, Matt. You say he has the ability to do that, but if you look at the constitutional amendments that the people of Wisconsin have adopted, lawsuits have been brought already in Governor Evers' first term, saying that he overstepped the broad authority that he has, trying to get around the legislature. So if we have a fair Supreme Court, I'm certain that they will take a look again and probably agree with us as the past Supreme Courts have. But that's the clear difference. When you say he has the broad authority, that is clearly in question. We do not know that. He has taken the broad authority, but it doesn't mean that it's right.
Let me take that a step further. Are you or any Republicans considering now legislation attempt to even more limit the veto powers of any future governor through constitutional amendments?
It's certainly a possibility. We've not talked about that formally, but it's one of the things that we're going to look at. We know that the will of the people goes through the legislature. That is the whole point of having elections. It's the whole point of having a governor who negotiates, hopefully, and signs a bill. That's a very public process. What Governor Evers did was something that is not done by any governor in our history, was not done by Tommy Thompson or Jim Doyle, wasn't done by Scott Walker. It wasn't done by any of them to strike out a dash to try to do something like this. So clearly we can see that it's unprecedented and it can't continue. It can't continue for us to have a flourishing democratic process in the state.
Would a constitutional amendment be in direct response to this, or have you wanted to do this for some time?
No, we have. I never thought it was necessary, frankly. This is something that's unprecedented. Governor Evers has taken this to a new level. In many ways, talking about how the legislature is undemocratic. Well, having one person use a creative veto that is clearly in question, we won't know until the court says whether or not it's constitutional, but it's clearly questionable to say that we're going to go around the legislature. We don't appropriate for 400-year increments, and for the governor to think that that's appropriate clearly shows how out of touch he is. It also reminds me that when he ran for governor last time around, he tried to sound like a moderate who wanted to work together. We tried to echo that tone throughout the entire first part of the year, and he really threw it back in our face. And that's why we have very little option left but to go to the courts to make sure that we know whether or not this is constitutional.
Assembly Speaker Robin Vos from Brussels. Speaker, like always, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Matt. Have a good day.
Up next, reaction to the news just made, the new threats of lawsuits, but litigation and constitutional amendments are nothing new. Former Governor Jim Doyle standing by next.